Hello. So, for some time now, I have been wanting to do a video about self care versus self love. What does self love look like? What does loving yourself look like? Sometimes we get a little bit confused about how we express self love and how it manifests. I think that we have developed coping mechanisms and patterns from childhood to say, okay, this is how I'm going to cope, and this is what I am going to need to do to survive in this life. I think almost everybody has self love. I don't believe when people say this person don't love themselves or that person don't love themselves. Everybody, almost everybody love themselves. So what we sometimes fail at is sometimes we don't practice self care. We don't practice self care, and like I said, I think that a lot of times goes back to our programming. Okay, what do I mean by that? I'm gonna use myself and as an example, to try and explain my thoughts on this topic. Okay, I grew up in the church. Sometimes we go to church 7 days a week, because like when they have crusade, we would go to church every Sunday, and every day, every night. But when it's not crusade, we used to go to, okay, they have Bible study on Mondays, prayer meeting on Wednesdays, Youth for Christ on Friday. Okay, so that's 3 days or 4 days already. And then okay, say when we're gonna be doing a play, we used to go to practice for play, and that's after school. And then if we were practicing for Sunday school anniversary, we used to have to go back to church for Sunday school anniversary. Sometimes we went to school, came home, went to practice, came home, and then went to meeting in the night. And sometimes when it's not meeting at the church, it's meeting at the local district meeting house. So that's like a lot of church thing. Okay. You go to church, you hear all this talk about to be a good Christian, you have to learn to turn the other cheek. And then you learn the golden rule, which this is a good one: do unto others as you would have them do to you. We're taught to, when people do you something, you should just don't pay them no mind, because you know better, and you go to church every Sunday, and who know better do better, and them not a God in them, and things like that, and stuff like, oh, we supposed to love everybody. And the one I have the most problem with is like, you should forgive everybody. And I'm gonna go into that because I have a problem with that. Turning the other cheek. So we're taught, like, Christ teaches to turn the other cheek, and if somebody does something to you, something bad to you, you shouldn't do it back to them. You should basically turn the other cheek, so that if they slap you on one cheek, they can slap you on the other one. Like, seriously? No. You gotta protect yourself. But we were programmed to think that if somebody slap you, you should not slap them back. You should turn the other cheek. The other one is, you know better, so you do better. Let me tell you people something. You don't know no better. Everybody know the same thing. Everybody know the difference between right and wrong. Somebody who hurts you, whether they physically hit you or they hurt you with their words or their actions, by their actions I mean if somebody betray you or mislead you or whatever, It's not that they didn't know any better. People know that when they do stuff to you, it's gonna hurt you. What they know is that when they do things like that to you, you're probably not going to react and you're not gonna retaliate, because you were taught, you were programmed, like I am saying, that's the word I'm using, programmed, to think that you know better than that other person, so you do better. No, that person knows the same thing that you know. They just choose to be mean and evil, and you choose to let it slide. That kind of thinking that you know better than the other person, so you do better. On the surface, it might seem like you're being humble. It seems like humility, or you're being more classy than the other person. But you know what? It's not humble. Actually, it's the opposite of being humble. Because if you let people get away with wrongdoing, you're not helping yourself and you're not helping them. Because when they have to face consequences of their wrongdoing, they'll think twice next time. I think it's downright arrogance to think that you are so superior that you know more than the other person and they don't know any better, so you do better. No, they know better. They just choose to be mean and evil. So that leads to tie in with the topic of self-care, self-love. It's not that you don't love yourself, but you were programmed to take shit from people. You were programmed to look the other way or absorb the pain because you're stronger than the other person. So it's downright arrogance to say, I know better. No. We know the same, and you choose to do wrong to me, and maybe you know better. Because you know, say, if you do that, you could probably get away with it because me think that I know better than you. So you're going to show me. So anyway, I think that's a fallacy right there. And I really do think that on the surface, it seems like humility. But if you really look into it, it is kind of arrogant to think that you know better than the other person. The person know the same amount as you. It's just that they choose to do the mean thing and you choose to let it slide. Okay, so I touched that topic. So the other programming, the other part of the programming that we got in church is that, oh, the Bible says we should love everybody. My Bible didn't tell me that I should love everybody. And I know people are going to probably argue with this. And I actually had a big argument with this at my church in New York when I went to like adults class, like the adult Sunday school. And I was trying to show them that the Bible didn't say you should love everybody. Or to try to prove this, they referred to that story of the Good Samaritan, when Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan, when like, okay, so a Pharisee came to Jesus and asked him, what is the greatest commandment? And Christ said, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. Okay? And then Jesus says, and the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And then now, let me pause this one. Okay, so the parable of the Good Samaritan is in Luke 10 verses 25 to 37. Luke 10 verses 25 to 37. Okay, so after Jesus said that the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, then the Pharisee wanted to entrap him and proceeded to ask him, so who is my neighbor? And then Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now the Good Samaritan, just to summarize, was the guy who took the guy off the street, the one who had fallen among thieves, he's from a different country that's supposed to not like people from the area where the other guy come from, like Iran and Iraq, something like that. Yeah, like the Jews versus the Palestinians. So anyway, so when the Pharisee said, "Who is my neighbor?" and Jesus told him the story of the Samaritan who helped the Jew who had fallen among thieves. So he helped him and dressed his wounds and made sure he was okay and put him up in a hotel or whatever. And Jesus said, "Which one do you think was neighbor to him that needed help?" And of course it was a Samaritan. Now what I get from that is that you should love the people who do good things for you. I don't get from that I should love everybody. Okay, and the other topic, the other programming that we got that I have a problem with, and I've had so many arguments with people about this one, is that whole idea that you need to forgive everybody. And sometimes people will point to the fact that Jesus forgave the thief on the cross. That was Jesus. Okay, my point, my take on all that is there is no logic to saying you need to forgive everybody. Because if somebody does something horrible to you or to your child, or they don't even have to do anything horrible to you, but you know that this is a horrible person, like Jeffrey Dahmer or any kind of serial killer or anything like that, where is the logic that you need to forgive that person? No. And then they say forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. No. Taking care of yourself is for you. Healing yourself is for you. And I know some people will say, "Oh, well, you have to forgive somebody to heal." No. No. First, you need to take care of the wounded person inside of you, or if it's wounds on the outside of you. You take care of the wounds that you have. You work on your own healing. And if you get to a point where you feel that that person deserves your forgiveness, that's your choice if you want to forgive the person. You shouldn't feel compelled to forgive anybody. That is your choice. And furthermore, forgiving a person does not mean that you absolve them of the penalty. Me personally, if somebody do me wrong, I might get to the place where I can forgive them. But I'll hold a grudge for life. I don't care. I'll hold a grudge for life. And it doesn't mean that I hate the person to the point where I would plot their death or destruction. I mean, I could leave you alone and not, as them say, left you to God or left you to time. But it don't mean that I'm gonna wish you well. I don't care. The most I'll do is like, I don't care what happened to you. Like, whatever. Just leave me out of your business and your problem. But I'm not automatically gonna just forgive you. And like we said, forgiving don't mean you forget. And as far as I'm concerned, forgiving don't mean that you let the person back into your space again. And furthermore, you don't have to forgive the person. Some things are unforgivable. Some things are unforgivable. Okay, so the other thing is when Christ bowed his head and said, and this wasn't about the thieves, it was about the people who actually crucified him. When he said, "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Well, he's Jesus Christ. You're not. I'm not. I ain't forgiving somebody because they don't know what they do. If you didn't know what you do, well, you still did it. You still did You still did it. So why should I just automatically forgive you? I'll think about it and weigh the situation and see if I want to forgive you. But I don't have to. I don't have to. Okay? All right.